Now, I've been getting criticism a lot lately over the past few months for ratings like a 6.0 with Savant's album, for giving Giorgio Moroder a 3.0, for giving Alice in Wonderland a 2.5, which is kind of why I didn't really want to review this record. First of all, I'd like to say nothing I'm saying is biased based on the person or any of the parties involved or any account of sexism or anything like that. I wouldn't consider myself a person who is like that, and honestly I just listen to music for the music, and I'm reviewing based on my own personal opinion on the music itself. So without further ado, let's get into one of the worst records I have ever listened to. This one is called Anus, and it's by, let's just say, Alaska Thunderf. And I'm gonna say that for the sake of keeping this channel as clean as possible and making it family friendly. I would rather not say that and say anything else. Most of this record is just full of things that I can't say, and without a doubt this was one of the toughest listens. I actually listened through this full record before going to bed one night just so I could review it, and I haven't been able to catch up a lot lately on my reviews, which I've wanted to do, but I've been busy with a lot of things, including launching my own record label, which I'll be putting out more information soon, and releasing one of my new songs, so that'll be cool. But a little bit of information, Alaska is a drag queen. If you don't know what that is, it's a man that dresses up as a woman, acts like a woman, looks like a woman, basically everything like that. And I wouldn't really have a problem with this, at least in the music industry, if the entire freaking album wasn't about being a crossdresser. And like I said, if this album was good, I wouldn't have a problem with it, but it's just not. And this is listed as a dance album. That's actually how I found out about it, it went #1 on the iTunes dance chart, so I figured I'd check it out. And I really don't understand how anyone can enjoy this. The only reason I can possibly think that someone would have enjoyed this is because Alaska appeared on RuPaul's Drag Race, and apparently that's a really popular show, but honestly I think anyone that gets enjoyment out of this kind of music or that kind of style is probably in the lowest common denominator of people, and I'd rather not. I don't want to tear down anyone that likes that kind of material, but honestly I just don't think it's very entertaining to listen to something like this. Actually, the only thing I enjoyed about this album in the slightest was the production on the first track of this album, Hi, and I really don't think an album like this should be listed under the dance charts. I can see something like RuPaul's last album or his album before that, Born Naked. Those actually kind of sounded like dance albums. This one, not in the slightest. It sounds mostly like a pop record. Couple tracks you'll hear a little bit of dance. Like I said, the production on Hi is pretty okay, but most of them are just fairly drawn out pop tracks with very extremely cringy lyrics. We hear lots and lots of curse words, which a lot of the times I don't have anything against in music, but when it's overused and in this particular context, it's just very strange. And like I said, just the fact that most of these tracks are about being a crossdresser. When I hear music from a DJ, let's say Hardwell, I don't expect him to make an entire album full of tracks about being a DJ saying, I don't ghost produce, I don't ghost produce, I don't ghost produce. But for example, This Is My Hair, one of the tracks on this record. Or like Paris Hilton making songs saying, I'm a real DJ, I'm a real DJ. And it's just like, so pointless, and I don't really see, there's really no deeper lyrical meaning behind any of these. And when we do, there's a couple tracks like The Shade of It All, and things like this would normally, I would feel are pretty okay and would actually fit together as something that I can enjoy. But in the context of this record, I can't take it seriously in the slightest, honestly. When you hear tracks about feminine underparts and having feminine hair and calling someone's makeup terrible, it's just like, most of this record, the lyrics are just so cringy, and I actually found myself making faces, even though I was by myself. I was by myself listening to this record in my bed, and just making faces to myself like, ugh, it's just so very cringy, and it does push me outside of my comfort zone, which would be okay, typically, musically speaking, but when it's talking about lyrics and lyrical messages, this is absolutely just trash. And I think even if this was a dance record and it was released as instrumentals, this would still be absolute garbage, and I doubt Alaska produced this himself, which is even why I have less respect for it. It doesn't sound good, and the only thing I think he really contributed to this is the lyrical points, which are really, really trashy and just honestly not really good messages for the general public. And one of my least favorites on this record, that's a bit of an understatement considering the entire thing is basically my least favorite, the song Legendary. And a lot of this song, it sounded like it was going to be kind of good, but he's talking about getting into a plane crash and almost dying, and he says that he wouldn't have minded if the entire plane full of screaming people would have died, because then he would have died legendary. And that's where the name of the song comes in, obviously. But it's just a really bad message, considering it doesn't even really make sense in the context of things. Think about, let's say, the 9/11 plane crash, and I don't want to bring a terrorism message into this because that isn't really connected. But in a lyric in this song, he says he would have died legendary if he would have died in a plane crash. I bet Alaska didn't know a single name of any of the people that died in 9/11, and that was a famous plane crash, or famous two plane crashes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I highly doubt it, and if he did know anyone on the plane crash, I think this is highly insensitive of a message to put on this album. And while I do respect the amount of diversity on this record, honestly it just doesn't really fit together, neither as a concept. The only really concept on this record is, like I said, the fact that he's a cross-dresser, and I don't expect musicians to write songs about their own styles musically or the TV shows they act on, and it's honestly just not something I can really enjoy. And there's not much else I can say about this album. Very trashy lyrical messages, and themes that don't really make any sense, subpar productions, and this is essentially the worst possible thing I could ever hear. Like I said, there was a little bit of headway in the first track, Hi, and it is kind of a little fun track to listen to, but just one track, and especially on an intro, doesn't sway my opinion of this album being probably the worst thing I've listened to this year, and maybe in years. So without further ado, I'm going to give this record a solid 1. I was thinking about implementing a 0 just for this album, but I wouldn't think it would be right. For one, I'm going to get a lot of hate in the comments already from people who watch RuPaul's Drag Race and actually enjoy this music. And for two, I just didn't want to take away that I really did give Alice in Wonderland's album a very low rating, and I want to be able to stick with 1s, 1.5s, 2s, 2.5s for the things that I really don't like, and didn't want to implement a 0 and a 0.5 rating for myself. But anyway, like I said, 1.0. Normally I tell people to go and listen to this record and tell me what you think, but if you're watching this, you probably have already listened to the record and probably already have your opinions on this. A lot of people are enjoying it, and honestly, I think if this was labeled as a comedy record, it might be a little bit more enjoyable, like Lonely Island records. Obviously, things like that, you're not going to get good lyrical messages, and the lyrics aren't going to make a lot of sense, and it's going to be kind of like this, but this isn't supposed to be like that. It is labeled as a dance record. If this was labeled under comedy, I probably wouldn't have listened, and I probably wouldn't have reviewed it. But when you're taking up the dance charts and people are defending it as a dance record, like people in the reviews of this album on iTunes, people are defending it as a dance record, saying that you're not a true dance music fan if you can't enjoy this record, which I completely disagree with. So anyway, if you haven't listened to the rest of this record, save your soul and don't. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this little review. I sure didn't enjoy listening to this album, and have a nice day.